The village of Harrow's End was a speck on the map, nestled in a valley where the hills folded into one another like the pages of a well-worn book. It was the kind of place where time seemed to pause, where the seasons changed but the days felt eternal. The air carried the scent of pine and damp earth, and the only sounds were the creak of wagon wheels or the occasional bleat of a sheep from the meadows beyond the cobblestone streets. In the heart of the village stood Eli's workshop, a squat building with a sagging roof and a sign that read simply, "Carpenter." The paint on the sign had chipped away years ago, but no one needed it to find Eli. Everyone knew the man who fixed what was broken, often for little more than a thank you or a loaf of bread. Eli was 42, though his hands told a story older than his years. Calloused and scarred, they moved with a precision that came from decades of shaping wood into things that lasted. His workshop was a sanctuary of sorts, its walls lined with tools hung on pegs, their handles worn smooth by his grip. Sawdust coated the floor, catching the light from a single bulb that swayed when the wind snuck through the cracks in the window panes. The space was small, cluttered with half-finished projects, a rocking chair missing an arm, a table awaiting its final sanding, but it was Eli's world, where he could make sense of things that others discarded. That autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the hills and painted the sky in hues of amber and bruise, the bell above the workshop door jingled. Eli looked up from the stool he was mending, wiping sweat from his brow with a rag that smelled of linseed oil. In the doorway stood a woman he didn't recognize, a rarity in Harrow's End, where faces were as familiar as the stones in the street. She was slight, her frame swallowed by a threadbare coat, and her hair, streaked with gray, was pulled back in a tight bun. But it was her eyes that struck him, sharp and guarded, like those of a fox caught in a trap. She leaned heavily on a crutch, its wood splintered and bound with twine, barely supporting her weight as she shuffled forward. "Can you fix this?" she asked, her voice low and rough, like gravel underfoot. She held out the crutch, her arm trembling slightly from the effort. Eli set down his tools and crossed the room, his boots scuffing against the sawdust-covered floor. He took the crutch from her, his fingers brushing against hers, cold, despite the warmth of the evening. The wood was in worse shape than he'd expected, the shaft cracked through to its core, the grip worn to a slick sheen. It was a wonder it hadn't collapsed under her. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the weak spots. "This isn't worth fixing," he said, meeting her gaze. "It's holding on by a prayer. I can make you a new one." The woman's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I don't got money for that," she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Just patch it up. It'll do." Eli S.H.